The stars were dying, and Commander Jinwoo knew it was only a matter of time before his home would burn too. He stood on the bridge of the Kateri research station, watching through the massive viewing ports as another planet turned red in the distance. The world had been green just 3 days ago, covered in the beautiful crystal forests that his people loved so much. Now it glowed like an ember, all life consumed by the creatures they called the Vorthok. How many ships escaped? Ginru asked his aide, a younger Kateri named Taemin. Only 12 transport vessels, sir. Maybe 3,000 survivors. Taemin's forearms shook as he spoke. The rest, they didn't make it to the evacuation points in time. Jinwoo closed his large, dark eyes. 3,000 from a population of 15 million. The math was simple and horrible. His people were not warriors. They were scientists, artists, teachers. They built machines to heal and create, not to kill. Their weapons were meant to defend their cities from small raids, not to fight a war against an enemy that wanted to eat entire worlds. The Vorthok had appeared at the edge of their space 2 years ago. At first, the Kateri Council thought they could talk to them, make peace like they always did with other species. They sent diplomats with gifts and offered trade agreements. The diplomats never came back. All they found later were empty ships, stripped clean of every living thing. The Vorthok did not want territory or resources like normal enemies. They wanted to consume everything alive and then move on to the next world. They were like locusts, but the size of ships. Sir Taemin said quietly. The council wants to know if we should try to contact the Galactic Union again. Ginwoo made a bitter sound. They already told us no, 3 times. They say the Vorthok are too dangerous to fight. This was the truth that hurt most. The Kateri were part of a large community of peaceful species, but when the real danger came, they were alone. The other aliens were too afraid or too far away to help. They sent messages saying they were sorry, but they would not risk their own people for a species that was already losing. Jinwoo walked to his command chair and sat down heavily. He was tired in a way that sleep could not fix. As the military leader of the last Kateri fleet, he carried the weight of his entire species on his shoulders. Every decision he made might be the difference between survival and extinction. Send out another distress signal, he said. All frequencies, all languages. Tell them who we are and what is happening to us. Sir, we have sent 47 signals already. No one has answered. Then we will send 48. Jinwoo looked out at the stars again. Somewhere in this galaxy, there must be someone who will help. Hours passed. The communications officer, an old Kateri named Sunmi, worked at her station, sending the same message over and over into the darkness of space. Jinwoo knew it was probably useless, but doing nothing felt worse than trying and failing. The message was simple. We are the Kateri. We are a peaceful people facing extinction. An enemy called the Vorthok is consuming our worlds. We have 3 systems left. If anyone can hear this, please help us. We have knowledge and technology to share, but soon there will be nothing left to share. As the ship's day cycle moved toward night, most of the crew went to rest. But Jinwoo stayed on the bridge, staring at the red glow where another world used to be. He thought about his mate and children, evacuated to the inner colonies. He thought about the crystal gardens where he played as a child, now nothing but ash. He thought about all the art and music and stories that would die with his people. Then, Sunmi made a sound of surprise. Commander, she said, her voice suddenly excited. I am getting a response. Ginwoo sat up straight. From who? I am not sure, sir. The signal is coming from the far edge of the galaxy. The species calls themselves humans. They say they received our message and they are sending ships. Humans. Ginwoo had never heard of them. Are they a strong military species? Sunmi worked at her controls, trying to get more information. I cannot tell, sir. Their signal is weak, and their technology seems ... different. but they say they are coming to help. Jinwoo felt something he had not felt in months, hope. It was small and fragile, like a candle flame in the wind, but it was real. How long until they arrive? Their message says 6 days, sir. 6 days. Jinwoo looked at the tactical display showing Vorthok movements. His analysts predicted the enemy would reach their current position in 8 days. It would be very close. But maybe, just maybe, these humans would arrive in time. He did not know who they were or why they had answered when no one else would. But for the first time since this war began, Jinwoo allowed himself to believe that his people might survive. In the darkness of space, help was finally coming. The human ship looked nothing like what Jinwoo expected. Where Kateri vessels were smooth and curved like flowing water, the human craft was all sharp angles and dark metal. It moved through space with purpose, like a predator hunting in the night. Commander Dong-Heen stood in the docking bay of the Kateri station, waiting with 3 of his officers. He was smaller than the Kateri, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His uniform was plain and practical, nothing like the flowing robes that Jinwoo wore. "Welcome to our station," Jinwoo said, bowing in the traditional Kateri way. "I am Commander Jinwoo. We are grateful that you answered our call." Dong-Heen nodded, but did not bow back. "I am Commander Dong-Heen of the Earth Defense Fleet. This is Lieutenant So-young, my tactical officer and chief engineer." He looked around the beautiful station with its glowing walls and crystal decorations. "We need to talk about your enemy." They walked through the corridors to the command center. So-young kept asking questions about the station's defenses and weapons. Her questions were direct and sometimes rude, but Jinwoo could tell she was trying to understand how the Kateri fought. "Your energy shields are incredible," she said, looking at the technical displays, "and these particle cannons could cut through our best armor like paper. How are you losing this war?" Jinwoo felt shame burn in his chest. "We are not, ... We do not know how to fight like this. Our wars were small things, disputes over trade routes or research rights. We would fight for a few days, then talk and make peace." Woojin was studying the sensor data about Vorthok ships. His face was grim. "These bioships regenerate damage. They use living tissue instead of metal, and they reproduce by consuming organic matter." "Yes," said Taemin, Jinwoo's aide. "They eat everything, plants, animals, even the soil. Then they make more ships and more warriors." Dong-Hyen was quiet for a long moment, reading the reports. When he looked up, his expression was serious. "How many worlds have you lost?" 47, Jinwoo said quietly. "We have 3 left, including our homeworld." "And how many humans have come to help us?" asked Sunmi, the communications officer. 12 ships, Dong-Hyen replied. "About 3,000 crew members." The silence in the room was heavy. 12 human ships against the massive Vorthok swarm that had already consumed 47 worlds. "That is all?" Jinwoo asked. "That is all we could spare," So-young said. "Earth is far from here, and we have our own borders to protect. But we study your enemy's patterns. We think we can help." Before anyone could respond, the station's alarms began to sound. The Vorthok had arrived early. On the main display, thousands of enemy bioships appeared like a dark cloud moving toward them. They looked like giant insects, their hulls pulsing with veins and organic growth. Some were as large as cities. "Battle stations," Jinwoo ordered. The Kateri crew moved quickly, but Jinwoo could see the fear in their movements. They had lost so many battles already. "Show us how you fight," Dong-Hyen said. Watching the tactical display, the Kateri fleet moved into their standard defensive formation. Their ships formed a perfect geometric pattern, each vessel in its assigned position. Their shields activated, creating a barrier of energy between them and the enemy. It was beautiful and precise, like a dance. The Vorthok attacked like animals. They had no formation, No plan that the Qatari could see. They just swarmed forward, firing biological weapons that looked like living lightning. At first, it seemed like the Qatari were winning. Their shields held against the enemy fire, and their particle cannons destroyed Vorthok ships with each shot. But then the enemy began their real attack. The damaged Vorthok ships did not retreat. Instead, they flew straight at the Qatari vessels, trying to crash into them. When they hit the shields, they exploded, releasing clouds of small creatures that ate through the energy barriers like acid. "They are trying to board us," Jinwoo said, watching in horror as the creatures crawled across his ship's hulls. Soon, reports came in from the Qatari captains. The boarding creatures were inside their ships, fighting in the corridors. But the Qatari crews were not trained for this kind of combat. They were scientists and engineers, not soldiers. "All ships, retreat to secondary positions," Jinwoo ordered. "They are abandoning their ships," Soyoung said with disbelief. "The ships are still working, but the crews are running away." Dong Hyan watched as the elegant Qatari formation fell apart. Ships fled in all directions, while the Vorthok swarmed over the abandoned vessels, consuming everything they could find. "Your technology is better than theirs," he said to Jinwoo. "Your weapons are stronger, your shields are better, but you fight like prey, not predators." Jinwoo felt anger rise in his chest. "We are not killers. We do not enjoy violence." "Neither do we," Dongyan replied calmly. "But sometimes you must become something you do not want to be, or you cease to exist at all." As they watched the Vorthok finish consuming the abandoned ships, both commanders realized that this alliance would require more than just combining their fleets. The Qatari would have to learn to fight like humans, and the humans would have to learn to use Qatari technology. Neither species would be the same when this war was over. 3 weeks after the first battle, Dong Hyan stood in the training room watching a Qatari officer named Hyan Su try to use a human rifle. The tall alien's forearms shook as he held the weapon, and when he pulled the trigger, the shot went wide of the target. "I cannot do this," Hyan Su said, setting the gun down. "This weapon is made for killing. My people create things, we do not destroy them. Your people will be extinct in 2 months if you do not learn," said Lieutenant Soyoung. She had been training Qatari volunteers for weeks, and her patience was running thin. "The Vorthok do not care about your peaceful nature." Dong Hyan picked up the rifle and handed it back to Hyan Su. "Try again. This time, do not think about what the weapon does. Think about what it protects." On the other side of the room, Chief Engineer Wu Jin was working with Qatari technicians to modify their ships. They were installing human weapons alongside the Qatari energy cannons, and adding armor plating to protect the crews during boarding actions. "Your particle cannons are perfect for long-range fighting," Wu Jin explained to a Qatari engineer named Min. "But when the enemy gets close, you need something that fires fast and hits hard." The work was slow and difficult. The two species had completely different ideas about how to build things. Qatari technology was elegant and efficient, designed to last for centuries. Human technology was rough and practical, built to be replaced when it broke. "Why do you make everything so complicated?" Minyoung asked, looking at the human weapon systems. "These guns have so many parts that can break." "Because simple things stop working when you need them most," Wu Jin replied. "Complex things can be fixed even when they are damaged." The real test came when the Vorthok attacked a small supply convoy near the edge of Qatari space. Dong Hyan took 3 human ships and 4 modified Qatari vessels to intercept them. It would be the first time the two species fought together as a real team. Jinwoo commanded one of the Qatari ships, with human marines aboard to handle any boarding actions. Hyan Su was his new weapons officer, still nervous but determined to try. The Vorthok force was small, maybe 50 bioships attacking 2 transport vessels. Under normal circumstances, it would have been an easy victory for the Alliance fleet. "Standard formation," Jinwoo ordered, falling back on Qatari training. "Negative. Dong Hien said over the communication channel. We try something new. Kateri ships stay at long range and use your energy weapons. Human ships will get close and distract them. That is not how we fight, Ginwu protested. It is how we fight now, Dong Hien replied. The human ships charged straight at the Vorthok swarm, their guns firing continuously. They moved in unpredictable patterns, never staying in one place long enough for the enemy to target them properly. The Vorthok, confused by this aggressive behavior, focused all their attention on the human vessels. Meanwhile, the Kateri ships used their superior range to pick off Vorthok ships one by one. Their particle cannons cut through the bioships like knives through paper, but from a safe distance, where the enemy could not reach them. It is working, Hyensu said with surprise, watching his shots destroy target after target. But then the Vorthok adapted. Some of the bioships broke away from the main group and headed straight for the Kateri vessels, ignoring the human ships entirely. They are coming for us, Jinwu said, fear creeping into his voice. Let them come, Dong Hien said. Kateri ships, hold position and keep firing. We will handle the ones that get through. The human ships turned and chased the Vorthok vessels that were heading for the Kateri fleet. It became a race, with the humans trying to destroy the enemy before they could reach their allies. 2 Vorthok ships made it through. They crashed into Jinwu's shields and exploded, releasing the boarding creatures that ate through the energy barrier. But this time, the Kateri were ready. Human marines met the creatures in the corridors, fighting with weapons designed for close combat. The boarding action was brutal and bloody, but the humans held the line while the Kateri crew continued to operate their weapons from protected positions. When the battle was over, all the Vorthok ships were destroyed, and both transport vessels were saved. The Alliance had won its first real victory, but the cost was clear. 3 human marines had died fighting in the corridors, and several Kateri crew members were wounded. Both species had been forced to do things they did not want to do. We saved those transports, Hyensu said, as he looked at the tactical display. But I killed 17 living beings today. Yes, Dong Hien said simply. And because you did, 3,000 Kateri civilians are still alive. Jinwu understood now why the humans had answered their distress call. It was not because they enjoyed war or wanted to be heroes. It was because they understood something that the Kateri were just learning. Sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to destroy what threatens it. Over the following weeks, more victories came. Small battles, raids on Vorthok supply lines, rescue missions to save trapped civilians. Each fight taught them something new about working together. The Kateri learned to be ruthless when necessary. The humans learned to be patient and precise. Neither species was the same as before, but they were becoming something new together. Something that might actually survive this war. The biostation hung in space like a massive tumor, its surface pulsing with organic veins that glowed sickly green. Commander Dong Hien stared at it through the view screen, knowing that inside that living structure, thousands of new Vorthok warriors were being born every day. Intelligence confirms it, Lieutenant So Young reported, her voice tight. The station produces approximately 2,000 combat units per cycle. If we let it continue operating, they will have enough forces to overwhelm our remaining defenses within 6 weeks. Jinwu stood beside the human commander, his 4 arms crossed in distress. The Katari had never seen anything like this station before. It was not built, it was grown, like a plant or an animal, but twisted into something designed only for creating death. There must be another way, Jinwu said. We could try to disable it, force it to stop producing warriors, without destroying it completely. Dong Hien shook his head. Our weapons experts have studied the structure. The only way to stop production is to destroy the central core, and that means... He did not finish the sentence, but everyone on the bridge understood. The intelligence reports were clear. The station was not just a factory, it was also a nursery. Thousands of young Vorthok were growing in the organic chambers. not yet old enough to fight, but alive nonetheless. Hyun-Su, who had become Jinwoo's most trusted officer, spoke quietly. In our culture, we have a saying, the flower that blooms in darkness knows only darkness. These young ones will grow up to consume worlds, just like their parents. They are still children, protested Minyoung, the Keteri engineer, who had been working with the humans. How can we kill children? Because, if we do not, they will kill our children, said Chief Wu Jin, bluntly. In 6 months, those young ones will be leading raids against Keteri colonies. They do not learn to be peaceful. They are born to consume. The debate continued for hours. Some Keteri officers refused to participate in any attack on the station, to resign their positions, rather than be part of what they saw as murder. Even some human crew members struggled with the decision, but the mathematics were simple and cruel. The station produced more warriors in 1 week than the Alliance could kill in a month of fighting. Every day they waited. The Vorthok grew stronger, while the Keteri grew weaker. Finally, Donghyun made the decision that no one else wanted to make. We attacked the station in 12 hours. All ships will target the central core simultaneously. The station will be destroyed completely. The attack began before dawn. Ship time. 24 Alliance vessels surrounded the biostation, their weapons charging for the coordinated strike that would end the threat forever. Jinwoo watched the tactical display, seeing the heat signatures of thousands of living creatures inside the station. Not all of them were warriors. Many were young, barely formed, knowing nothing of war or peace, only the hunger that drove their species. All ships report ready, So-young announced. Donghyun looked at Jinwoo. Your people should fire first. This is your war, your choice to make. Jinwoo stared at the firing controls. His finger hovered over the button that would launch the attack. Around him, the bridge was silent, except for the hum of machines and the quiet breathing of his crew. He thought about his own children, safe in the inner colonies, but not for long if this war continued. He thought about the Keteri worlds already, consumed the billions of his people who had died screaming as the Vorthok devoured everything they had ever loved. He thought about the young creatures in the station, innocent of their parents' crimes, but carrying the same deadly nature in their genes. His finger moved toward the button. Sir Hyun-Su said suddenly, "Let me do it." Jinwoo looked at his officer, surprised. Hyun-Su had been one of the most reluctant warriors, the artist who had learned to kill only because survival demanded it. You should not carry this burden alone, Hyun-Su said. We are all responsible for what happens next. Without waiting for permission, Hyun-Su pressed the firing control. The Alliance fleet fired as one. Particle beams, fusion torpedoes, and plasma cannons all struck the biostation's core at the same moment. The living structure convulsed, its organic walls splitting open to release clouds of glowing gas. The light inside flickered and died as the life support systems failed. It took 17 minutes for the station to die completely. 17 minutes of watching something alive become something dead. When it was over, nothing remained but drifting chunks of organic matter that would never grow into ships or warriors. The bridge was completely silent. It is done, Jinwoo said finally. That night, Donghyun found Hyun-Su alone in the observation deck, staring out at the debris field where the station had been. I was a sculptor before this war, Hyun-Su said, without looking away from the window. I made beautiful things from crystal and light. Now I make death from weapons and fire. War changes everyone, Donghyun replied. The question is whether we remember who we were before, so we can try to become that again when it is over. Will it ever be over? Donghyun had no answer for that, but he knew that both their species had crossed a line today. They had chosen survival over innocence, necessity over morality. It was a choice that would haunt them long after the last Vorthok ship was destroyed, but they were still alive to be haunted, and sometimes that had to be enough. *. The Vorthok Queen ship was larger than anything Commander Dong Hyen had ever seen. It hung in space above the Kateri homeworld, like a second moon, its bioorganic surface pulsing with veins that carried nutrients to weapon systems the size of cities. Around it, thousands of smaller Vorthok vessels swarmed in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Final count is 8,000 enemy ships, Lieutenant So-young reported from her station. Her voice was steady, but Dong Hyen could see the fear in her eyes. We have 412 vessels in our combined fleet. Jinwoo stood beside him, watching the tactical display. The Kateri commander had changed over the months of fighting. His movements were sharper now, his decisions faster. The gentle scholar had become a warrior, though the cost showed in the lines around his large eyes. The civilian shelters report they are ready, Jinwoo said. 3 billion Kateri are in the crystal caves beneath the surface. If we fail, we will not fail, Dong Yin interrupted. He did not say it because he believed it was true. He said it because both their crews needed to hear it. Below them, the beautiful blue-green world of Keter Prime turned slowly in space. It was the last Keteri world, the birthplace of their civilization. If it fell, the species would be extinct. Within a generation, the Alliance fleet moved into position. It no longer looked like two separate forces fighting together. Human and Kateri ships flew in mixed formations, their different technologies working as one system. The humans provided close-range firepower and boarding crews, while the Keteri supplied long-range weapons and defensive shields. Remember, Dong Yin said over the fleet communication channel, we do not try to destroy all of them. We only need to kill the Queen ship. Without her, the swarm will break apart. It sounded simple when he said it that way. But the Queen ship was protected by layers of smaller vessels, and it had weapons that could destroy entire fleets with single shots. The battle began when the Vorthok detected their approach. The enemy swarm moved like a living thing, flowing around the Alliance fleet in patterns that seemed random, but somehow always put the defenders at a disadvantage. Heian-Su, now commanding his own ship, led the first attack wave. His vessel had been modified with both human and Kateri weapons, making it unlike anything else in the galaxy. He dove through the Vorthok formation, his guns firing continuously, while his shields absorbed return fire. Breakthrough on the left flank, he reported. The smaller ships cannot match our speed. Chief Wu Jin coordinated the engineering teams across the fleet. Human and Kateri technicians worked side by side, rerouting power and repairing damage. Even while the battle raged around them, they had learned each other's languages and methods, becoming something new in the process. Kateri's ship Crystal Song has lost main power, Wu Jin announced. Human vessel Defiance is moving to assist. The human ship positioned itself between the damaged Katari vessel and the attacking Vorthok, taking heavy fire to protect its ally, while repairs were made. It was the kind of sacrifice that had become common in the Alliance fleet. For 6 hours, the battle raged in orbit around Keter Prime. Ships died on both sides, their crews fighting to the last breath. The Vorthok showed their usual ruthless efficiency. But the Alliance had something the enemy did not understand. They were fighting not just to survive, but to protect something they loved. Finally, a gap opened in the enemy formation. The Queen escort had been pulled away to deal with attacks from multiple directions, leaving the massive biovessel temporarily vulnerable. All ships, final assault, Dong Hyen ordered. Target the Queen ship's central nerve cluster. This is our only chance. The remaining Alliance vessels charged straight at the heart of the enemy formation. Human ships led the way, their armor absorbing the worst of the defensive fire. Behind them, Kateri vessels prepared their most powerful weapons for the killing. Jinwoo's ship was among the first to reach the Queen ship's hull. As they approached, the biovessel's surface opened like a mouth, releasing clouds of boarding organisms that swarmed over their shields. Hull breach in sections 4 through 7, reported Min Young from the engineering station. The creatures are eating through our armor. Human Marines met the boarding organisms in the corridors, fighting with weapons designed specifically for close combat against biological enemies. But this time, they were not alone. Kateri crew members stood beside them, no longer running from the violence, but facing it with quiet courage. The final shot came from Hyansu's ship, his particle cannon, charged with all the power his engines could provide, struck the Queen ship's nerve center at point-blank range. The beam cut through layers of organic armor and tissue, reaching the creature's brain. The Queen ship convulsed once, then went still. Around it, the Vorthok swarm suddenly lost coordination. Individual ships began fleeing in all directions, their hive mind broken by the death of their leader. As the enemy scattered, Donghan looked around his bridge. Human and Kateri crew members worked together without thinking about their differences. They had become one team, one family forged in the fires of war. "It is over," Ginwu said quietly. "No," Donghayan replied, watching the last Vorthok ships disappear into hyperspace. "Now it begins. Now we learn how to live with what we have become." On the surface below, 3 billion Keteri emerged from their shelters to see a sky free of enemy ships. They were alive, but they were no longer the same species that had first asked for help. War had changed them, just as it had changed their human allies. Both species would carry the scars of this conflict forever, but they would carry them together. As partners in a galaxy that had taught them the hardest lesson of all, sometimes the greatest act of love is learning how to fight for it.